So today, okay, this is first of all, this is my journal for one reason, and for the other reason is this is to share stories for the others who might take these stories as some kind of value to change and improve and help their life. And today I want to talk about this guy who ran a marathon for a woman he decided to marry, and what happened to him. and and there is a many part of stories, but I just want to speak about the portion of his story. And one day he decided to marry this girl who he was attracted, and then he felt really special thing. One day he made that decision and then start asking her out, and much later he was still trying to get to know her, and he was a marathoner by the time. He completed 4 full marathon. He actually started running, and at that time he couldn't even barely finish. He could barely finish 5K, but he started training and he tried a half marathon, and had done many half marathon. And then one day he said he might try a marathon. He will do just once, for maybe his life. But then he ended up doing marathon for 4 times, and he's done pretty good time, finishing time too, as he kept, trying. The first his marathon was, just about over 4 hours, but his best among 4 marathons he had done was 3 hours and 39 minutes plus a couple seconds or something. And in order for him in his age group, he needs 3 hours and 30 minutes. You need to break that 3 hours and 30 minutes in order to qualify Boston Marathon, just as a reference. And one day, and he wasn't thinking about 5th marathon. 4 was a lot for him, actually, by the time. But one day, he decided to do 5th one. And he told that girl if he had made his best time in this marathon, then he will go cycling with her. He found out she likes cycling, bicycle. And he ran that 5th marathon, and the course was relatively flat compared to other marathon, existing in the world. But the weather was harsh. It was down in South Florida, and temperature was high. But he was determined to make a best time ever that he had to do, or he will do. And so in order to that, he decided from the beginning he's gonna overpace than his previous mile pace, and he maintained till the end, so he could make sure he's gonna get the best time ever for him. And then race was, in the beginning, was good. He kept the best pace, and halfway he was still above the record, and but he started feeling the fatigue, and he realized the pace was kind of coming down, but he was determined to make his lifetime record, basically, fifth one, the best time. And he said two options: whether he makes the record or he die. And he kept pushing, but the temperature was raising, and but his his heart was getting to the point that he almost like explode. But then he pushed, and he came to the point. He didn't completely lose the consciousness, but came to the point that he was losing the consciousness, that he couldn't control his body, so he fell down, and then he was dizzy, but he kind of like came back, and he thought that was it. And then he started having both calves sort of rocked up. And I don't know if anybody have ever had both calf of your legs rocked up at the same time, but it was really painful for him, and so he actually couldn't help screaming. So people came around him and tried to help, and one of the nice spectator, and then he came to help, and then he asked to stretch his leg, because he was so pain. He was screaming. Literally, he was screaming. He couldn't help screaming, and eventually, actually, the event organizer, the helper, called ambulance, and the ambulance people in the ambulance asked, the medical team came and asked him that if he wants to be taken to the ER, and he said yes. And as he was riding on the ambulance, he started thinking about, maybe he didn't need the medical help, and he realized he might have a big bill, but it was too late for him, and he went to ER, and a female doctor came, and then he gave him an IV to help his muscle recover. And he was thinking that it was over. His goal was over. He couldn't make it. And but he actually asked the doctor if he can continue, go back to the race. And the doctor said, actually, doctor said to him, usually they're not allowed to do that. But then, in some way, the doctor told him that she was gonna close her eyes, basically. And then told him how to get back to the race. Actually, it was really close to the hospital was located, ER facility was located very close to the actually part of the course route. So she directed how to get there at that point so that he could go back to the race. He wanted to finish the race, even though it was going to be a worst time ever for him, but he wanted to finish. So he finished the race. And probably officially speaking, he left out of the route course and then get back to some other different point. So maybe in the official way, he was disqualified, but he wanted to run the race, and he finished. And what happened was that actually he was determined to make the best record ever, and he wanted to basically get to know that girl he decided to marry, but he was determined that much, and he was courageous to do so, but then he wasn't courageous enough to be able to actually tell her until the very last minute. But he told her, and then he went to the race, and the girl the day or day after, she came what do you call, like, just they bumped each other, and she asked about it. And he could have probably words better explain what happened, but he was sort of already kind of made a peace with his sort of failure, and he kind of revelation about what happened in the hospital, and with the interaction with the doctors, and the fact that he went back, he was able to go back to the race, and then he walked through the finishing line, up to the finishing line, even though he had like 5+ hours time, and he could have explained to her everything in detail, but then he couldn't or didn't. He would just like I guess he wanted to smile at least about it. So he smiled, and I think he just said something in the line of that he couldn't make it. So with all the effort, what he wanted wasn't acquired. But what I wanted to talk about his story is that the decisions he made at some point, even though he wouldn't never ever recommend anyone to make some kind of similar decision or do things, but basically he made a decision, the absolute decision, and then he did whatever possibly came into his mind, the creativeness he did. And what happened? That's the point I think I wanted to get to today. But it's just a part of his story, and then there is a lot of things, and then the context need to be probably explained. But he studied Spanish because she was from Colombia, and he said to himself, if he was going to marry her, then he's going to be a family. He was going to be a family of her family. So he uh, was certain that he wanted to speak Spanish. So he studied Spanish by himself, and he is now comfortably speak Spanish. And he one day he found out salsa dancing was very important part of her culture and family. Um, so he looked for salsa place, and he went to the class. He kept going learning salsa. He didn't even know what the salsa was about in the beginning. So there is a very funny story around that, how he started salsa and how he thought about salsa in the beginning, and but he eventually joined the salsa performance team, and he, yeah, he performs. He's still performing. So, and also he went to Bogota, Colombia by himself. He wanted to go. Of course, he kind of dreamed going Colombia with her at someday, but wasn't happening sooner than he was expecting. So he decided to go to Bogota, Colombia by himself, and he went for 3 days, and he had extremely like amazing trips, one of his best trips that he made, and interacted with the people over there, and so what happened with the decision 8 years later, he's like, compared to before the decision making and today, he's 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 entirely living in the new world. He's like learning Spanish and then being now comfortably speak without any inconvenience. It opens up entire new world, because language is really deeply associated with its culture, and it's learning language is actually by itself eye opener to expose to new culture. And for example, he was studying Spanish hard, and it took longer than he wanted to, master the Spanish language, because in the beginning he had the hesitation to take whatever action he needed to make that happen. He was surrounded by Spanish-speaking people, but he was kind of shy about practicing with those people in the beginning. That kind of slowed the process, of course, but eventually he got it, and and actually at some point he became really confused between English and Spanish, and he say things like thanks for the invitation. That's the way Spanish speaking people express. For example, if you go to lunch with somebody, and then somebody buy you lunch, and then after that they will say gracias por tu invitación, like thank you for the invitation. that expression. And so he got confused with the English, so he started saying in English that, like, thank you for the invitation. And then actually, some of his friends made fun of him. And so that was something um, he had to fight for. And so basically, when you make the decision, and then, okay, so I almost forgot, but and then also, probably this is a story about for some other time, but that whole thing and his search for the decision that he made actually made him encounter the new path of his entrepreneurship too. So it's that, like, that decision opened up so many different things that he never even imagined before that decision. And so that the decision that you make really opens up, I mean, this is the phrase I heard from Wayne Dyer, that your mind can potentially expand in every other direction when you come to the sorry, I forgot what he actually said, but basically, the decision making really ignites something, in your mind, and you will be really creative, more creative than you could ever thought. And I mean, that's how probably our brain works, but it opens up entirely new world. And different people explain this, who people experience a lot of success, and then the life-changing experience, like Wayne says that your mind expand in every other direction. That's one way to describe it. And one of my mentor on grammar, he told his story and expressed that the he himself from the future came to him, and he disappeared, and that the him himself from the future came into himself, something like that. So there are different way to express, but really what happened to him, that he ran the marathon for a woman, because of he decided, he made some decision, his life had changed completely and opened up the whole new world for him. And that's actually basically probably, I don't know how I can better summarize in it, and I wasn't sure how I can put these things together today, but that's what I wanted to talk about. And like as I am saying, I always am saying that I'm doing this for two reasons. It's one reason is my this is my journal. I do this for my journal. And The second reason is I want to share the story so that somebody might take this as a valuable things and somehow digest these things for him or her and get something out of this. So 2 reasons, and this is what I got from Tai Lopez, my mentor, that 50% you gotta have 50% your selfish reason, and then other 50% gotta have a altruistic reason. You can't have one only. You can't completely do things for completely altruistic reason, nor you can completely do things for your selfish reason. And that was it today.